to finding yourself sometimes is discouraging because of the hurdles you face. But what is the next step when you have seemingly found the new you? I am Uche, and this is Educator's Couch Session. Welcome back. Of course, it's always an amazing time on Couch Session with my personal co-host, Miss O. And today we have someone who has taken it upon herself to see that educators get to where they seemingly want to get to. She has been on an amazing journey so far, and we're so honored and really excited to have her here with us today. Kosi, you're welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you here today. So we're just going to talk about something that a lot of people don't usually talk about. That is finding yourself, right? A lot of people feel they found themselves, but somewhere along the line, they start to struggle. Who am I? Especially with with social media, where you find a lot of people doing so many things, and you just realize, I think I'm still in one place. You know, so for educators, I always usually say that for an educator, it's like you just have just one path. You're either in the classroom or you're not. You're either in a school system or you're not. So sometimes it's very easy to say, apart from this, who else am I? Right? So that's basically what we just want to delve into today. But first, we want to start with Educator's Roadmap. That is something that is one of your babies, right? Yes, and we want to go into your mind. What was Kosi thinking starting Educator's Roadmap? What's the idea? What is it about?
Okay, thank you, Che. You know, you said something that for the teacher, it's almost like it's just the classroom that you do. It's almost like it's just that teaching. Outside the teaching, what else do you do? There is memes that you see on the board teachers where they say a teacher on holiday, you see the person on the couch, potato chips, watching TV, and then suddenly the holiday is over and that's it.
That's it.
So it's like, if I'm not in the classroom, it's almost like the classroom defines you.
Yeah.
And then there were so many pointers. During the COVID, we had a lot of teachers crying on Instagram. How they don't have money, how they don't have anything. They are begging for everything. So it's almost like the teacher is at the mercy of every other person. Yeah. You have teachers that are being told, oh, you are beggars. You're always talking to parents to give you one thing or the other. So I started thinking, like, as a teacher, I can be fulfilled. I can be happy. I can be wealthy. I can be a boss. I can be anything, even though I am teaching. You went to the same secondary school as I did. And I'm thinking in my head, remember Mrs. Ogunbeko, remember Mrs. Okeke, remember Mrs. Inaji, remember those teachers that when you see them, actually, when you see those teachers, for me, it's like, when Mrs. Njoko is teaching physics, those people would I call them models or gods? It was like they embodied the profession, and they didn't talk beggarly. It wasn't, do you understand? So for me, I wanted to see teachers who knew why they chose teaching, this profession. So it wasn't thrust upon you. It wasn't something like, oh, you don't have work, you're the last in class, you didn't do well, the only thing that JAM could give you is education. So come and do it. So for me, for the roadmap, it was like, as a teacher, you have a whole life to live. You have the financial aspect of your life. You have your family. You have your goals. You can have visions, dreams. You can live an impactful life. So for me, it was about getting teachers to start thinking, after this classroom, in my classroom, not only do I exhibit that ownership and take charge. Outside, my life is also fruitful. It's productive. I'm doing so many other things because I can do it.
Yeah,
so that was what was in my mind.
Amazing. I think you've actually said, I know we've had a lot of conversations about this several times. Like, you are not just your classroom, or you're more than that. You know, when she's talking, I just started thinking about it, that education is much more than being an educator, is much more than being in the classroom, is much more than being in admin. It is so wide. You can come into the space and decide that, you know what,
I want to look at resources. You know what? Remember that I was recently on a panel, and what we were talking about was policies. How many of us, I'm a school leader, how many school leaders actually understand the framework of the policy? What is being given to us? You know, I did my research looking through out of school children, looking at budgetary allocation from government to education. Those are things. So the space is so wide. I don't know, people come into education and think the only thing they can do is classroom. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So what I'm hearing is, apart from just being in the classroom, there are things you need to know, right? Yeah. So does Educator's Roadmap have the opportunity to expose educators to things apart from things not in the classroom, things that they don't need to know in the classroom? For instance, she talked about budget, she talked about policies, she talked about administration, because of course for me, I think if you're a teacher, you also need to understand administration. Mm-hmm. So does Educator's Roadmap give the opportunity for that?
Okay, so I think we've had about 3 sessions of the Educator's Roadmap. Now, so far, I think for me, I have focused a bit more on mindsets first.
That is critical.
Because I think eventually we'll come there. Now, I'm involving more teachers, more educators who have had more years of experience in the field. So gradually, we're going to get to that exploring policies. So for instance, we had a master class in the Learn Hub recently on understanding curriculums. Because I noticed that a lot of teachers, when they're in the classroom, it's like, okay, this is the lesson plan. So I just teach it.
Exactly.
And you teach it, it's just a topic like you're teaching. So you don't understand, why am I teaching this? What are the skills behind it? What is, and then what is this trying to achieve for that child? Why am I teaching this child? What's the future behind this? So I know that eventually, gradually we'll get there. But for me right now, a lot of what we've done is about that mindset, that renewing your mind first, so that the person begins to see themselves. So one of the questions I ask in one of the courses is, what do you believe this profession to be? How do you see your classroom? What change do you want to make in this profession? What do you see that you don't like? So for me, I'm starting with dealing with the person. So for now, we've done a lot more of that, and then gradually showing teachers other opportunities in the profession. In the profession. So more or less like, don't just stay here and think that this is all that there is to it. So for instance, I still have teachers who will talk to me and will ask questions like, how do I improve my income? This is what I'm earning. How do I change this? And it's like, and somewhere in my head, I'm going, so you don't even know how to improve this income. I don't want to be, I know I want more money, but I'm not seeing any other way to do it, or they feel the process is too slow. So there's still a lot to be dealt with. We'll come over to, there's some educators like you who have seen, okay, there is more, there is, do you understand? And then those ones are moving there, but I realize that there's so many people still that need to be in this place, first of all, for them to now begin to think about a bigger, so it's like they're first of all thinking about themselves. At the end of the month is about, how much am I taking home? What do I even have? I can't meet my needs. So we need to move them from that point to the point where they're now looking at, okay, education can change Nigeria. What's my part in that?
Amazing. So that's a very wide, that's a very huge mindset shift, because right now they're not just thinking of, I'm in the education space, what can I do, right? What impact can I make? Okay, so you said something, how do they, quite a number of educators have asked, how do they improve their income? So how do you tell them to, or teach them to strike the balance? Because then again, education now, teaching now is not what it used to be. Before, you know that your teachers close at 3 o'clock. Right now, I say, really, there's no closing time for teachers. You just keep going. So someone says, I need to do a business alongside school. How do I strike the balance?
Okay, so let me see if I understand. You're saying, how do I teach them to improve their income?
So that one doesn't suffer.
Okay, so you, So your question, or what you added to your question, makes it sound like you're approaching it from the increase of the income has to come from a side hustle.
Exactly. So if
I'm thinking both ways. Yes, I'm thinking both ways. I'm thinking number one, increasing your value. So for instance, I started as a teaching assistant. At that time, I just graduated. You know, my immediate younger sister, I just graduated with her from QC. And I left and took a teaching job. She left and went to KPMG. And at the time, they were offering me 75,000 naira, and they were offering her like 150, almost double up. I remember both of us being in the car after I collected my letter, and I looked at, said, younger sister, because we graduated together, see your job, you can practically pay me and have change. You understand? Have change. So I really cried in the car. She said she's trying to say, because this is what you've chosen. So do you understand? Make the most of it. But what happened? 4 years into being a teaching assistant, I approached my head of school and I told her, I'm done being a teaching assistant. I'm ready to move up. And she's like, Kosi, you don't have this, you don't have that. So when she listed everything I didn't have, I said, fine. I went back, worked on those things, and I came back. That year, they were looking for teachers. They interviewed about 3 or 4 of us, and 2 of us were given the position to be made teachers. Automatically, that came with a pay rise or pay raise. But now, what I'm looking at is the value, what are you able to bring? Gradually, as I got into the classroom, I started learning the ropes. I would stay with people, I would read, I would plan lessons, I would sit with, if I had a lesson, even as a teaching assistant, I would have lessons, I would just watch, because it was a white lady, one of these Americans that was heading the school. I would watch how she would teach, because she would come into the classroom and model. So I would watch how she would teach. My next lesson would be exactly like that. The next time I'm looking for something more. I could disturb. So hungry. Do you understand? I was looking for a way. So before we even come to the side hustle, eventually what people don't realize is that eventually it's the parents that will begin to talk for you. Before I left my last school to the current one, it was the parents talk and everything. I realized 1 month my salary looked strange. I went to the HR and she's like, director says to increase this, to increase. And I'm like, the increase is not that type of increase of 10,000, 20. It's not that type. It was this kind of increase that makes you go, okay, what's happening? So you realize that she wasn't always coming to my classroom. I wasn't always going to her office at this time. In the beginning, I was disturbing, asking, where wasn't I getting right? But now I was sitting on my own and making a difference. And the parents were talking. My bosses were talking. People were saying, this is this. Parents were at the end of this term saying, please put my child in this course's class. You understand? So eventually, number one starts with the value you're bringing there. When you're bringing that value, then that value also comes with, you learn how to manage your time. When you learn how to manage your time, then you can start bringing in a side hustle. So in the beginning, which is also that mastering yourself, knowing when you work best, knowing what to add. By the time you studied and going to, a lot of things will leave. It's funny because let me give you an example. In my classroom, then I will decorate and set up the classroom. It will look like, but eventually as I started studying more, I realized that I was spending so much time on the decor, but the main thing was the results my children were producing. I also started realizing that, okay, your classroom display should be able to reinforce your learning. So I was spending less time on that, focusing on what was going to produce the results. Now I was having more time to think about other things. So for me, it's a process. It's a process. So for me, it starts with where you are, give the value there, excel in that thing, because when you excel in that, then people don't even have the time to look at, oh, you're doing something else, that's why you're not able to. Because you're doing this so well. Do you understand? You're doing when you're at work, you are at work.
Absolutely.
So when I'm there, I'm fully present, I'm doing it, everything has to be on point. Then when I switch off, even though we talked about earlier that you never really close, right now I'm working on something on mindfulness, and number one tip for mindfulness is close from work. I was waiting to
just so sorry, Kosi, to take you back. The issue, what I have seen, Mimi, is that the reason why educators sometimes will be hopping from place to place is because there's no clear path for their career. Once you are dogged and you know that this is where you are going, you knew what you wanted. There was, unfortunately, that place of mentorship where somebody is able to tell you, Miss Kosi, after 2 years, this is it, this is what you do. You literally had to fight for what you wanted. And because you realized that I'm not leaving this place because this is what I want, you fought for it. You kept on asking, you kept on role modeling.
Exactly.
It's sad because you know how you look at other professions, like maybe medicine, for example, where you can tell when you see a doctor, when they go for their residency, they have the senior doctor, somebody is guiding you. You can tell that in 2 years, there's such a structure in medicine, yes, plus or minus the private sector, where you know that when you're in level this, you earn this. So that when you start to look for a side hustle, it's not because I want additional income, it's because I know that I can give more and I have the capacity to give that more.
Yeah, because just to add to what you said, a lot of teachers would have left after 4 years being a teaching assistant, and then you go to your direct supervisor and say, you know what, I don't want to be, and then she says to you, you don't have this, you don't have that. A lot of teachers would just be like, please, I've slaved, I've tried, I've worked.
And there are some schools that will take you as a teacher. Of course. And you can go there, and if it's my uncle, you say, be the local champion. Do you understand?
And then you don't even have the opportunity to grow because you just feel this is where I am now. So my previous school didn't make me a teacher, but now I'm a teacher. What next?
But what's the school from even telling you when you come in that to get to the position of a teacher, you need to do this. You won't have waited 4 years.
Miss I think that is, you know why? Because a lot of schools, sorry to say this, but the whole idea of couch session is to change the narrative. So a lot of schools will take, especially if what they're offering, because for someone who is ready to leave as a teaching assistant and is not ready to grow, of course, if you go to somewhere and they want to offer you a job as a teacher, whatever the pay is, you're ready to accept it. Do you understand? And now a lot of schools are looking for people who just come. Do you understand? No matter, they just come. So someone would always say there are teachers out there, they're teachers and they're teachers. Kosi was different because she knew what she was looking for. And I know it wasn't just about the pay, but I need to, because if it was just about the pay, trust me, you would have left.
Yes, I would.
But of course she knew that, okay, this is not all I want to be. This is not where I want to end my career. So I need to go further. And that's why she decided to, you know what, they've said I don't have this, I don't have that. I need to grow myself. Yeah. So, the Educator's Roadmap, I want to believe that, or everyone watching or listening wants to believe that it is a path to finding yourself as an educator. Right?
Yeah.
So that's what we want to accept you. There's another description.
So it's both, yeah. So it starts with finding yourself and then eventually growing as a professional, yes, in this on this field. Because like you said, they're teachers and they're teachers. They're teachers who, when you see them, you would actually ask them, are you sure you are a teacher? So there's that, yes. So it's from growing, not just when you have found yourself, it's making your mark in the profession. Yes.
Okay. So how do, as an educator now, I'm speaking from the mouths of educators out there, how do I push even when I don't feel like it? Because, you know, you were able to tell yourself, I want to be more than a teaching assistant. But for someone like me that, I'm giving an example, I'm not saying me, but I'm just saying for an educator listening that is like, okay, I want to, but man, I don't think I have the energy.
You don't really want to.
Really?
If it's, you want to, but...
Okay, so what if there are a lot of things like finances, family, I don't want to say pressure, but you know, family comes into it in terms of I have responsibilities, but I truly, really want to.
You truly, really
want to. Because now I want to ask a question, right?
Yeah.
When you, of course, to move from a teaching assistant to being a class teacher, right, a lead teacher, and you were told you didn't have this, there are courses you needed to do, right?
Yes.
There probably may be degrees or some other certifications, thank you needed to get, and it costs money.
Yes.
Okay, so what if for someone who doesn't have that means?
How do you go about it? Okay, so I must say, I think for me, first of all, there was a lot of support, especially from my husband.
Okay.
He was one of those that pushed as well. So even times because I remember when I did my PGD and finally got it, I had a baby. But he was the one who would push, whether you baby or no baby, you're going, you would go. So that support helps. So I think it's also important that you're communicating what you want with somebody else who's going to push you, who's going to remind you that you said you wanted to do this at this time. So why haven't you done this? And then when they hold you accountable, it also takes you. You can resist, and then the person eventually leaves you alone. So it's when you are pushed, it's also you going, accepting. And then there's a lot of, there was someone I heard once who said that you need to also have that inside. You have to decide that this is what you want. Intrinsic motivation. So there has to be that. And you have to want it bad enough. I was listening to something recently. There's this book, Think and Grow Rich. And we were talking about a burning desire. That I think that's one of the chapters, because I haven't read the book. I just listened to. So he said something about somebody who was going to fight somewhere, and he burnt all the boats or the ships as they got to where they were going to. It's a battle we've just crossed. We burn out. That means there's no. So it's either you win or you die. So the drive to win doubled or tripled or multiplied by 10 or something, because you know that I can't get off this island. So if they don't kill me, I kill you. So you have to choose. So there are times when it hasn't always been easy. There are times when I give myself a break and I'm like, Kosi, I'm not doing it again. So there are times when it happens like that. I was just like, it feels like, and then the other things I've done, because if you're talking about finances, if you're talking about responsibility, but it also comes down to that. You need to, for me, you have to find a way. There were times, yes, I'll say, okay, I'm going to do this thing. If it means I'm going to take a loan from somebody and then I'm going to pay back, because I know this is going to get me here. Eventually, I have started doing, which is all part of what, for me, I put into the Educator's roadmap, is my finances, there's a percentage for professional development.
Okay, so just before you go on, don't go away, we'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. Just before we went on that very short break, Kosi here was telling us about putting your finances together. So can you throw more light on that for us?
Okay, I was saying part of what we do on the Educator, like, remember I said it's about your whole life, every part of it. So planning your finances, planning your money. What are you saving? What are you investing? So professional development is a huge part of that. There's this guy on YouTube, Ramsey. Ramsey will say that one of the ways to improve your finances is to earn higher. Now, one of the ways to earn more is to improve your skills. So what can you give? So, and very key to that is your professional development. Yeah. So you want to have a portion of what you earn that goes to professional development. Now, it's not, there's something I think people need to realize. When you hear people speaking like this, don't feel like, oh, they have it all together. See my life, it's a bottle. It's not like that.
So what do we call that? FOMO, right?
FOMO, fear of missing out.
Fear of missing out.
So it's not that we are perfect. It's just that every day we're telling ourselves, I'm going to do. So it's like you have to be scared with yourself as well. So for me, it's been a case of, this is what I am giving to professional development. And then what is the professional development?
I was going to ask that.
Because if you just remove the money, eventually you're going to spend it. So for me, entering 2023, for instance, and if you notice, the roadmap always happens at the beginning of the year because it's connected to planning and your entire year. So what have you planned for your professional development? There's a plan, there's a specific thing that you're going to do this year, maybe in quarters. I do in quarters or 4. So what have you planned? So my money is going here for professional development. So when that is decided, then you know exactly where it is going. So that's part of what you plan for.
Okay, so in finding yourself and then finding who you are, just loving you basically as an educator.
Yeah.
I know Kosi mentioned something about taking a break.
Yeah.
So
I'm an advocate for self-care. Self-care isn't selfish, you know. And as I was just saying to you, I'm just coming out of one, and we started off the year in a very strange way. I had a vision boarding for my core team. And what I wanted to know is, look, enough of me saying to you, this is what we need to do. You tell me what you understand from the vision of the school. And immediately we were done. I didn't do mine because what they do feeds mine. And I decided to flip it, you know, not to say, okay, this is the vision. I'm casting the vision. I want you to tell me what you understand. You've been doing it for 4 years. And immediately they were done, I realized that, you know what, I need to go back to the drawing board and reassess a lot of things. I remember calling my boss and saying to him, I need to check out. He said, don't say more. I don't usually ask for those things. And he says, I said, I need to see. And for me to see, I need to be quiet. And I was in my quiet season. I could only do this because I have empowered my team enough, you know. And I'm like, you guys go. Call me when the house is burning. I may not pick. And it's been good for me because I'm asking, you know, those things of professional development and all those things. I'm not just hopping on everything because everybody's doing because of FOMO, you know. How does this aid my career? And it's fantastic that Kosi has a community for educators, and that's how we started that community for school leaders as well. It isn't even a community that is about professional. It's where are you? Where are we going? Nobody. If you check it, school leaders, who is telling you this is the next stage? It is very different for school owners. As a school leader, where are you in the next 5 years in the scheme of things? That's what I'm saying to myself.
Amazing.
There's something I wanted to say about what you just said something about. For me to see, I need to be quiet.
Yes.
And you talked about self-care. And I remember this whole midterm break, for me, it was a case of, even with my baby, with her brothers, and your door is locked.
Yeah.
And I would, like you said, unless somebody is about to, no money, no nothing, phones, because the truth is sometimes for you to find you need to go in, take time out, shut down everything, listen. It's a lot of, I don't know what for me it feels like, why don't you get that you just need time out? A lot of people,
right? I'm being very careful about this. I'm constantly checking, even as I'm stepping, I'm checking on my team. And I'm asking them, they're like, that's fine. And I realize that people haven't really waited for people to tell me they're not okay. I'm looking at them like, so I'm giving them, everybody has an intent, you have a permit. You can use it, you can step out. You need a day off to zone out. And you see, for me, this 1 week has taught me something, be extra sensitive. People are communicating but are not speaking. You know, so what are we as educators doing regarding the mental health of people in our school? You said it this year. There was one thing when we were talking. We said this year has exposed bullying to me. So I'm asking you, do you like who you see right now? Something I don't like, and the next thing is, what are you doing about it? Okay, so just before we go, I know we've said a lot about professional development, and so how do you now know, right? So I'm going to be very Nigerian. How are you now sure that yes, I have found myself? You know, is there like some kind of conviction in your heart, or you're just happy somehow to just say, okay, I know I'm on the right path now. I know that I'm getting it. I know that this is not where I used to be, although it's not where I want to be, but I found something. Right, exactly. So how do you know? For those listening and they're just thinking, okay, I've done professional development, I've been quiet, I've taken breaks, you know, I've just made it me. I've looked at myself. Really, I looked at it just to point this out. I looked at myself yesterday in the mirror and I said, Uche, fine. You know? So I'm just saying, for those people who have gotten to that point, they're like, okay, I think how just saying to them like parting words, how do you know that you've actually found Kosi? 2 words. I want to know about the question. Just 2 things. It's like it's It's an unexplainable satisfaction.
I think
It's
that's
just
it. You can't explain.
Do you understand? You can't, but it's just that's how it feels. Do you understand? You just feel like this is it. Let me give you an example. One of the times I felt this thing, because there will be glimpses of it, there will be things you do and you just know. It will just sit. Everything it's inside. It's not a thing of, oh, I know I have found me because I have this. It's not a physical anything outside really. It's more, it starts from inside. So I was having a training with teachers. And when I was done with that training, in fact, right even on stage as I was talking, it's as if you enter a place where you're just flowing. You know, there's this clear, it's clear, it's like water, clear streams that is just, I don't know how else to explain it. It's a very inside thing, it's an inside experience, it's a personal thing, but you just feel satisfied. And when people, then it begins to show you the relationship with people. Because, you know, contrary to in the beginning where you're maybe that very maybe angry person, whatever it is, you just find that it takes more to get to you. You're no longer too much on the edge. Do you understand? You're not always upset. You're not always. So gradually, people begin to notice there's something about you. You're listening more. You're talking. You are calmer. Things can't, and then people are comfortable with expressing themselves to you. Something happened recently. Somebody was telling me, one of the first people that work with me was telling me, oh man, you just told me this, it's so abrupt, I don't have this. And I found that even though, yes, I'm his leader or his boss, he said that in a group where we were. And I realized I wasn't even upset with the way he said why you, and on the group that we were like, I'm really sorry you feel this way. I'm sorry about thank you for making the sacrifice. I'm sorry you had to do. But it's like you find that you don't take really things so hard. You just are. You become. You are okay. That's it.
So amazing. And we can, for this particular one, we can actually go on and on. So, of course, we're going to have you back. Just for you to know. Because, of course, we're not done with this conversation. You know, you can go on and on. Finding yourself is something that is an everyday journey. It's not something that I found myself and this is who I am. Yeah, exactly. So, on Talk Session, we have a little gift for you. Yes. Thank you very much. Yeah, so from all of us on Talk Session, we just present this to you. Yeah, very, very good. So when now that you found yourself, you can put your head there and sleep. You don't have water, that's the time. Okay, so thank you so much once again for joining us on Talk Session. Remember to follow all our social media handles.
On YouTube is Uche Okoro, on Instagram, Uchiwa Mrs. O. Kosi, can you give us your Instagram handle so we can follow?
Which one, personal or all the other places? Okay, so there's the educator _ng and there's the whole teacher. So those two.
Okay, and also we would also give you details on how you as an educator can join the Educators Roadmap community. Till we see you again, enjoy yourself. Bye.